Okay, welcome back. Let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're doing something really exciting, a rigorous academic audit of Yakshini Sadhana. And we're basing this purely on primary Sanskrit manuscripts, texts like the Udamaraswara Tantra and the Kaksaputa Tantra. We've had a highly requested 23-point research analysis regarding one specific entity, the Hansi Yakshini. So our goal today is to completely bypass all that modern folklore you see online and look exclusively at what these ancient classical texts actually reveal. Let's get into it. To systematically address this detailed research request, here is our roadmap. We're going to cover their ancient origins, the 36 Tantric Yakshinis, the missing Hansi details, scriptural case studies, ritual rules and fruits, and finally, some important warnings and our conclusion.
All right, Section 1. Ancient Origins of Yakshinis, Guardians of Wealth and Nature. Let's move on.
Now, before we jump into the really complex medieval tantric practices, it's absolutely crucial we establish what these entities actually are. If you look at the earliest literature, like early Buddhist and Jain texts, Yakshinis are categorized as Vyantars. So what does that mean? Well, they're a specific class of devas, essentially acting as local guardian spirits. Originally, they were deeply tied to trees, fertility, and protection. Think of them as the ancient caretakers of sacred spaces.
This image brilliantly illustrates those classical roots. In Jainism's breakdown of the four major kinds of devs, the Vyantar classification is exactly where Yakshas and Yakshinis fit into the picture. They act as caretakers, or adistyaks, guarding the faithful, and this was long before the Tantric era even began. It's like a giant puzzle, and this shows us exactly where they originally belong.
But here is where it gets really fascinating. Just look at this stark contrast over time. On the left side, we have the ancient view, where they're local nature deities. But then, on the right side, as we shift into the medieval tantric period with texts like the Kaksaputa Tantra, their role literally transforms. They evolve into these incredibly powerful grantors of magical feats, divine medicines, and even daily wealth. But of course, that's provided you can successfully navigate their incredibly rigorous rituals.
Moving along to Section 2, the 36 Tantric Yakshinis, medieval classifications.
So if we look specifically at the Udamaraswara Tantra, this medieval text actually categorizes these entities into a highly specific pantheon. In its 9th chapter, or Patala, it lists exactly 36 distinct Yakshinis. And right there, sitting at number 3, we find the exact subject of our research today, the Hansi Yakshini, sometimes spelled Hamsi. The list then goes all the way down, including prominent figures like Surasundari at 28 and Manohara at 29.
These specific lists were absolutely essential for medieval practitioners. They were using them to navigate intensive manuals like the Kaksaputa Tantra. This text, traditionally attributed to the Buddhist philosopher and alchemist Nagarjuna around the 10th century, is pretty much entirely dedicated to magical procedures, or sadhanas. The whole idea was to generate very specific worldly benefits by interacting directly with these exact entities.
Let's look at Section 3, the missing Hansi details, a scriptural reality.
Okay, so here's where we hit a bit of a wall. When we set out to apply our 23-point framework directly to the Hansi Yakshini, we ran into a significant textual reality. I have to be rigorously academic here. Despite being explicitly named as the third Yakshini, the primary Sanskrit manuscripts we have provide zero specific details on her appearance, her specific root mantra, or her rituals. Therefore, to answer all those specific points about her clothing, residence, and rules, we must state unequivocally this information was not mentioned in the available source. We absolutely cannot just invent what the texts have lost to time.
That brings us to Section 4, Scriptural Case Studies, Surasundari and Manohara.
Now, since the texts lack those specific details for Hansi, we've pivoted our analytical framework to two Yakshinis whose case studies are richly preserved in the manuscripts. Just look at the incredible precision here. For Surasundari, the text details a golden complexion, 3 eyes, and a residence near a Shiva lingam. Then, for Manohara, she is fair, wears yellow garments, and must be invoked at the confluence of rivers. The level of granular detail the classical texts provide is just mind-blowing.
It's truly amazing to see the original Sanskrit sitting right there next to the direct English translation. This specific verse from the 9th Patala of the Udamaraswara Tantra explicitly outlines the physical requirements. You have to go to a river confluence, right? Then, you make a sandalwood mandala. And the exact fruit of this sadhana, Mahayagara gives the practitioner 100 gold coins every single day. Talk about a massive boon.
And as you'll see here, you can find this exact same sadhana cross-referenced in the Kaksaputta Tantra. This is really important because it proves the consistency of this ritual across multiple primary manuscripts. These weren't just isolated fringe ideas, they were widely circulated, standardized magical procedures throughout the medieval tantric world.
All right, Section 5, Ritual Rules and Fruits, the Mechanics of Sadhana.
So what was the exact conduct actually required to achieve these incredible fruits? While using Manahara as our model, you can't just sit and chant. You have to go to a specific natural location at sunrise. You have to physically create a sacred mandala. The offerings are incredibly precise: white flowers, agarwood incense, and a milk and rice oblation called payasa. And the chanting? You have to recite the root mantra 10,000 times for an entire month. The physical and mental stamina required for this is just off the charts.
Beyond just Manahara, the wider Kaksaputta Tantra reveals an astonishing variety of disciplines for the practitioner. Depending on which Yakshini you're invoking, you might need to offer very specific botanical resins like gugulu or camphor. You might have to practice under a banyan tree or maybe in an empty shrine. And the mantras can demand anywhere from 1,000 up to an absolutely exhausting 300,000 repetitions. This often required strict silence, fasting, and intense purification over many days or weeks.
Now, this brings us to what I think is one of the most fascinating and honestly intense elements of the sadhana. If you are successful, the text states the Yakshini appears at midnight. But she doesn't just hand over a wish. She asks a question that establishes a very strict boundary. She asks, "What should I become? Your mother, sister, or wife?" The practitioner literally has to choose right then and there, and she will grant her fruits strictly according to that familial role. It's a massive test of character.
The actual root mantras for these practices are preserved in digitized manuscripts like the Mahayakshini Sadhana that you see here, and these texts make it crystal clear. Flawless pronunciation, deep isolation, and absolute mental focus are mandatory. According to the commentaries, making even a single mistake can render the entire month-long effort totally fruitless. No pressure, right?
Finally, Section 6, Warnings and Conclusion. Because these texts promise such otherworldly boons like hidden wealth, divine medicines, and protection, we have to approach this knowledge with utmost respect for the tradition's own guardrails. The ancient scriptures themselves detail immense physical and mental challenges, obstacles and fears during the sadhana. Therefore, we must state this clearly: Vedmata AI does not endorse the practice of any Yakshini sadhana without a qualified guide, guru initiation, and proper classical understanding. This is highly advanced esoteric knowledge, folks.
And before we go, I have a quick message for you. On behalf of the Vedmata AI family, if you found our presentation informative, please share our video as widely as possible so that the authentic knowledge of Indian Vedic texts can reach the masses. Let us all participate in this yagya of knowledge. Har Har Mahadev.
It really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If the specific details of the third Yakshini faded from the manuscripts over the centuries, just how much more authentic, scriptural knowledge is still out there, hidden in untranslated pages, waiting for careful scholars to uncover and protect? Thank you for exploring these primary sources with us on today's Explainer. Keep asking questions and always keep seeking the original texts.